Hello, and welcome to the Sacred Heart Shaman podcast, where we talk about spiritual healing, shamanic wisdom, and the challenges of walking the healer's path. My name is Nadia Harenkiu, and today is episode number 40, my experience with portals. Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the podcast today. We have yet another interesting setting for our podcast, and it leads me to want to talk about something with regard to being a business person, being spiritual, and all the restrictions and stories that we have, like self-imposed restrictions and stories we have around what it means to be a good business person or a good spiritual person. You'll notice that a lot of these podcasts I have are not recorded with a fancy microphone inside my house. They're not well structured. And life is not like that, right? Life is not perfect. Podcasting is not perfect. Getting your medicine out into the world doesn't have to look a certain way. And for me, for this point in my life, things are I don't even want to say messy because they're not messy. They're just fluid and they're big and they're non-linear. And that's okay, right? It doesn't stop me from sharing my wisdom and my experience and the beautiful gifts that I receive through my work and my abilities with all you. And nor should it, right? But if I waited until I had a perfect amount of time to record this at a table with my fancy microphone, I would never do it because right now my life doesn't have space for that. That's not the era that I'm in. And so let this be a gentle reminder to you that if there's something that you know you need to be doing, you know you need to be getting yourself out there or accomplishing in your business, that don't wait for it to look a certain way. Do it, and do it with what you have right now. So today I'm actually recording this podcast from a piece of property in Crystal River. I met these super magical people when I moved to Florida that had this giant piece of land, and they asked me to do ceremony on the land. And I quickly became friends with them. They're wonderful people, a retired couple from Vermont. And as soon as I stepped foot on their land, it was very clear that there was like a tremendous amount of trauma here. And every time I work on the land in any capacity, we clear some of that trauma and we clear some of that land and open up portals for healing. Now, today's podcast is about portals. I had a request to do this podcast by a client, and I love this because I want to know what you guys want to hear about. I have so much information and so much experience, but I don't even know where to start. So if you have requests for podcast topics, please throw them out there and I will do my best to address them. So today's request is about portals. Now, portals are a complicated topic, as I'm sure you can imagine. So the podcast is not overly structured. I have a list of things I want to address, and so it's going to be fluid and off the cuff while trying to hit all of the points that I would like to hit. So first and foremost, pretty early on in my work, I was identified by Spirit as being a portal walker. That I was a person who knew how to take a group, put them in a bubble, kind of like an airplane, to be honest. We go out one portal, we go into the in-between space, and then we come through another portal. And, oh gosh, if I could just give you a visual here, it's like going through a doorway and then being in the unknown worlds, right? So there's this show on Netflix that I really enjoy, Shadow and Bone, right? It's interesting when they get on the ship and they cross the big void, the big black area where all the nasty things are that can attack them. This is actually where I take people, or where I have taken people when I do certain ceremonies in the group setting. We all get on it looks like an airplane. I'm the captain and I bring them from point A to point B, both points involving a portal. And through that process, it's my job to protect them. It's to keep them in the airplane, all hands, feet in the vehicle, to keep things out that need to stay out and to get us to where we need to go. Now, over the years, my work has shifted in what I'm doing and how I operate, as is any work when you're doing God's work or divine work. And so I don't see that so much in my work anymore, but it was huge in the beginning. And to be called a portal walker was something I'd never heard before. So that was kind of cool. So I knew pretty early that that was one of my gifts, was working with portals. And over the years, what that means and what that looks like has continued to reveal itself. And so I'm going to share a lot of that with you today. So a portal is a doorway. You can hop from one place to another, but not everybody can hop. Not everybody can open a portal. And like an example would be if a part of you is here, or most of you is here, but you want to be there. If you're ready to be there in that next place, like you've done, whatever work needed to be done, this is very important. As long as you're ready to go through the portal, you will. And it's kind of like an accelerated jump, like a quantum jump. So instead of making that like slow transition, if you work with someone who works with portals, if you are facilitated by someone who works with portals, you can jump from one to the next. So it's almost like an instantaneous shift. Now, the important part about doing work around this first is that you can be bounced back. Even after you have been transported to the new place, you can be bounced back if you haven't resolved enough. And you're also not allowed to go through certain doorways with certain energies or baggage intact, right? So if you want to go through this portal, but you have a backpack that weighs 50 pounds and the max is 200, like you're not allowed to be able to go through. Same thing applies with like energy and emotion and trauma and baggage. So portals are like doorways in a lot of cases. They allow you to shift different densities quickly. So again, when we're talking about where you are versus where you want to be, you're often looking at a different vibrational plane, a different vibrational existence, and you can switch from one to the other if you have the tools and the guide to do that. Like you have to have someone to be able to open that portal. You can't open it yourself, kind of thing. And this goes back to some other topics I've talked about where like you can only open doors that you've opened within yourself. If you need to open new doors, you have to work with someone who has opened those doors for themselves, and they can attune you to that doorway so you will be able to open it in the future. The same thing applies with portals. You cannot open a doorway that you haven't yet been exposed to, so to speak, in one form or another. And this can be like chance encounters, locations, learning certain information, being exposed to certain people. Attunement is it's a whole other side tangent topic. But in any case, you must be ready to go, right? You can't go unless it's time. And if we push it, if we go before it's time or before it aligns, if we find the magic trick to get through the portal without doing the work, you're going to create karma. You're going to create a ripple, or a lashback, or a return route, because you haven't done it properly. It's very interesting. I don't think I have like great words to describe this, so I'm doing the best I can with what I have. Hopefully it makes sense. So something I've seen a number of times, which is very indicative of the work that I do, is I've seen a portal to heaven. So it's literally a portal that opens up to the very high vibration existence. It would be where I would consider where God would be, right? And God is simply, God, it's not simply anything. It's the vibration of love. Like God is love. God is the ultimate, highest vibration, if you will. It's not a person or even a personification. It's a frequency. It's a level of existence. And, I frequently have seen portals open up to that existence. And it's very tied into what I do. So I've seen it there's specific property in Livingston Mountain in Washington. A woman stewards that property. She has a stone circle up there. And there have been a couple times that I've been on her property where I've seen the portal to heaven open. and it's like a direct portal from heaven to earth. And again, this is part of my job, is bridging heaven and earth and helping people be able to touch into that energy, which is touching into God, helping them find God in themselves and in their work, and be able to listen to that vibration, to channel it. Yeah, so that's really cool. I've also seen it open the portal to heaven during ceremony. So, when I facilitate a group ceremony and we're doing some of like the deeper healing work, there's often a portal that opens in the middle of the circle at some point about 3/4 of the way through. And a client actually shared with me once what he saw during the group, which was I loved the visual. He said he could see everybody in the group. They all had shovels and they were like shoveling their stuff, their family stuff, their community stuff, their heritage, like everything, all the shadow, all the trauma, all the junk. And they all had shovels and they were shoveling it into the center of the room. And in the center of the room was a dump truck. And then at the end of the ceremony, he's like, I could feel when it was full. And there were like these angels that came down and they lifted the dump truck up and took it through this portal. And I don't know where it went. And I was like, yeah, that's the portal to heaven. Like when you do that deeper healing work, you're intentionally releasing and processing, letting go of these denser vibrations, these toxic vibrations, or however you want to look at it. And you're offering them up to God, right? You're offering them up to something greater than yourself. And of course they're taken, because it's that simple. When you ask for help, when you ask for it to be taken from you, it will be. But it was really awesome to have another person kind of validate that experience, right? So, because I don't see portals with my eyes open. Like, I can't look in front of me and Rick and Morty style be like, oh, there's a portal right there. That's not how it works. But I can step in front of one, or I can sit in front of one and be like, oh God, I know that there's a portal here and it's really strong, and here's where it goes, and here's what it does, and here's who opened it. I know these things, but I don't see these things. And with spiritual work, actually probably with just life in general, it's always a constant state of, did I make that up? Did I imagine that? Was that real? And validation is always awesome. Like, it never gets old, guys. So it was cool to have validation from someone who witnessed it, like full blown eyes open. They witnessed this experience, and I loved that. And then anytime that I hold any kind of healing circle, now that can be women's tarot group, it can be tobacco ceremony, full moon circle, any kind of working with the plants. When we get together with the intention to heal, we open a portal. And if you work with a facilitator, or if you yourself is tapped into the portal energy, the portal concept, if you understand and have that opening within yourself, portals open automatically. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when I host a group that's made for healing, because I am a healer, when we all come together with that intention, we open up a portal of healing. And this is really cool because it's not just the people who are sitting in the circle. It's the property that the circle's on. It's the community that the circle's contained in. And every person that comes adds to the power of the portal. So if my intentions are clean and clear and they are heart-centered, and I'm able to show up as the facilitator of that, and I'm able to gather the people to create it, we are creating a massive healing portal that ripples through the collective, depending on the size, depending on what we're doing. And then when we close it out, the portal closes. And now I don't have any crazy opening and closing ceremonies for my healing circles. I don't call in the directions. I don't do specific clearing. I show up knowing who's showing up with me, trusting it. And sometimes I'll be called to like do something with smudge or maybe say a prayer. Sometimes I don't have a ritualistic approach to my work because it's supposed to be fluid. It's supposed to be what's needed right now. I'm not supposed to control anything. And honestly, I think that that's why my work is so like next level, is because I have learned to completely get out of the way. So when I come to host a healing circle, I come with the intention to hold this circle. I come open, I come in complete service. And as a result, it opens automatically, like it just happens. And then we do our healing thing, right? Sometimes the portal remains intact for a certain amount of time. Sometimes it gets shut down immediately. It just depends on what we're doing and how long it takes for things to move or clear out. So a lot of times, we'll wrap up the healing circle and I'll feel the portal open for like 48 hours and it's still dumping and it's still channeling and it's still doing whatever it needs to do. But it's always good. It's always good, especially with my work. So it's not like we're leaving a bad portal open anywhere. When I do soul retrieval, this is some cool stuff. Soul retrieval is one of my favorite things, and I know I did a podcast on it, but I'm constantly learning new things about it. And when I do soul retrieval, it is quite common for me to have to open a portal to go somewhere far away or to reach into a pocket dimension and pull people out or pull parts of their souls out. Now, this is because people, most of which are inherently magical, will store parts of their souls in different dimensions that require portals to access those dimensions, or secret codes or secret doorways. Those are all types of portals. And, a lot of times when I'm the one facilitating the soul retrieval, which is not every soul retrieval, these are usually like the big ones, I will encounter a portal and I have to have the skill to open the portal, navigate through, and find my way back with the soul part intact. So that's how that doorway shows up in the soul retrieval space. When I am flying on an airplane, when anybody's flying on an airplane for that matter, we are going through portals, right? You are going above the Earth's plane, in Earth 3D, like you have to travel on the ground. When you're not traveling on the ground, you're talking about a different kind of travel, and it is very similar to portal travel, except it's not as jarring as going through a portal. So maybe I won't say plane travel is portal, but it's very close. So if you struggle with airplanes, if you struggle with jet lag, a lot of times it'll show up there, or a lot of emotion, a lot of anxiety, a lot of like issues with bodily function around flying. There is some trouble going through portals. It means that we need to work a little bit on your vibration to adjust it to be able to go to travel in those ways. So plane travel is an interesting topic, also not a linear one. What I see a lot in my work is women as portals. Now, I'm sure there's probably something to men having portals as well, but I just haven't seen it yet. What I do see is women as portals. So as a born female, right, someone who was born with a uterus, you literally have a portal built into your body that you bring life in and out through. Now, some women fight this. There are many reasons why. But when we are super clear about who we are and why we're here, and our heart is clear and pure, we have access to a portal in a way that I don't think most people understand. Like you can suck things out of this dimension, make them die, not in a bad way, but in like okay, we're done with this, moving on. Like let's take it and throw it back to the universe wherever it needs to go. The life and death. Women carry that ability so strongly, and because we're not conscious of it and we don't know how to work with it, we're not working with it. So we have the ability to bring life and bring death in very, very big ways, very beautiful, pure, innocent, heart-centered ways, mind you. But we are walking portals. And I think a lot of people who are on the medicine path, the spiritual path, like when I say medicine, I mean like we're talking about indigenous medicine, like medicine of the earth, medicine as in true healing, period. When we are medicine people, we can become living portals. We become like an archetype of a portal. which means things are constantly coming in and out, and we become the bridge for that, or the doorway for that. And that's why it's so important to have ridiculous amounts of self-care, a lot of accountability, being constantly in your own personal work and looking at your wounds, constant learning, education, training, like all the things, because you are a walking portal when you're on this path. And women are portals all the time. So it's kind of a cool thing to consider, to mull over. If you're looking at your life and you're looking at what you're creating, what you're bringing in and what you're bringing out and what you're bringing to the world, what is it? How does it feel? What does it look like? Could it be more clear? Does it take you over? Really, really interesting. Now, so I've seen a couple different types of portals. I once had a house that I was staying at, and the mirror in the bedroom had a portal in it. There were some other really weird things about this house, but specifically there was a portal in the mirror, and I couldn't see it, but like I knew it was there, and it felt like there was a window, and I could feel someone observing me or looking at me. It was deeply unsettling. When I tried to close it, I was told I was not allowed to close it. So whoever put it in the mirror either did something to make it not be able to be closed, or it was still serving whatever purpose it had, and it was not able to be closed. So I covered it with a sheet. Not all mirrors have portals, but I'm kind of alarmed at how many do. Um, so there's something to the old wives' tales about mirrors, I think. But yeah, that leads me to also talk about like opening and closing. So I'm not allowed to close every portal that I come across. Sometimes I am, but in most cases they close themselves unless they've been intentionally opened and made to remain open, in which case I've never encountered a situation where that's a positive thing. It's usually a negative thing. In the case of the mirror, it was literally trying to like suck energy out of me, which was not okay. When I covered it, it stopped, but still not okay. And I didn't get much information above and beyond that. I had a mentor once who was tasked with closing a Luciferian portal, and she described her experience walking into it and feeling it, and it was extremely disturbing, but she was able and allowed to close it. So if people open up portals with ill intent and they don't close them, like, I don't know what happens. I don't know if sometimes we're allowed to, sometimes we're not, if it's just about skill level or mastery as a shaman or a magical person. I'm not really sure, but I haven't seen good portals remain open. Like, they get opened, they get closed, moving on. This is one of the reasons why I'm called to visit so many pieces of land, is because I open portals. So when I go to a piece of land and I do my work, whatever that looks like in that moment, I open up portals through time and space for the land. So it means any trauma that's at the land, it gets taken out. We're going to transmute it. And sometimes that's a one-time shot, and sometimes it takes months or years to transmute it. Like, I have to continue to go back and do ceremony on that land to clear it. Sometimes it's remembering, and I'm supposed to go to a piece of land and open up a portal so that the land will remember how to produce food, or remember how to call in water, or remember to not be traumatized, like how it felt before it was ravaged, before it was traumatized. It's kind of a multi-dimensional process where we're clearing out, but we're also bringing in remembering. And the more we can do that around the planet, around different places, on purpose, especially because the land will call you, the land will tell you, the faster the healing will happen for the planet and for the collective. So when I get called to different places, it's extremely strong calling. It's very inconvenient because it's not cheap to travel, and I've always had a hard time justifying that with my work. But a land will call me, and I'm supposed to go there to open up portals. plain and simple. I'm supposed to go there to help it remember and clear what it doesn't need anymore. Like this just happened when I went up to Virginia last month. This land had been coming into my meditations and my dreams. I thought I was going to move there. No, I was just there to do some ceremony. And then the land was done with me. I know I'll be back to visit, but they're like, moving on. Actually, you're going to move to New England at some point. But yeah, so land will tell you what it needs. It's super, super important when we talk about portals that to know and understand that they can be opened with intention and without intention. So if you have the inherent ability to open portals and your heart is clean and clear, you're connected to love for self and others. This is the God energy, right? The Christ consciousness energy. When you open portals not on purpose, they're always going to be connected to love. They're always going to be connected to higher vibrations, and the intentions are always going to be good, and it's going to be great, and they're going to close automatically. You don't even have to do anything. This is the result of doing the work and walking a medicine path. You don't even have to try. You just have to exist, and you have to do it well. And you have to be in devotion to the work, So you can open portals not on purpose. It's great. Or you can open them on purpose. And those intentions, well, let me back up. When we don't open them on purpose, but they're not good, we're causing just as much damage as we are healing. So if you are, let's say, somebody like me, you have these abilities, but you're stuck in the shadow work, you're stuck in the trauma, you haven't had the right mentor, or it hasn't been time for you to step into that role yet, for whatever reason, you're creating portals of garbage. Like you're probably going to bring stuff into the collective consciousness that's not good. You're going to bring in little demons to torment you at night. You're going to bring in insidious energy, and those portals are going to probably remain open because you're not closing them, because you're not, working on the boundaries and working on clearing yourself. So they're going to remain open and not in a good way. And that's dangerous. That's super dangerous. And that's of course what I see a lot. And then you have opening portals with intention. So what that would look like is like what I said with a healing circle. I'm hosting a tobacco ceremony, a women's group, full moon circle. You're intentionally opening a portal of healing or community energy or whatever it is that you're working with. You're being intentional opening that portal. Now you can also be intentional in opening the negative portals where, we're doing I don't even want to call it like satanic or devil worship because I don't really believe in that stuff, where we're inflicting harm or we are working from a place of ego or fear or control. Those portals will open to the denser planes, the denser vibrations, and bring in stuff that's not good, that will hurt the collective and hurt your entire bloodline and everybody around you, even if you don't see it at first. They call that energy insidious for a reason. It's a slow creep. And eventually it will taint everything. So I think there's probably just as much light work and shadow work happening in the world with regards to portals. And I don't know that it has to be that way. I don't know that that's required any longer in our dimension as it changes. And so it's important to have this conversation, like it's important to have all of the conversations we have, to understand what portals are and what they do. And there's so many other facets to this, right? Like for everything I share on the podcast, it's like 10% of what I know and what I experience, because there are some things that aren't ready to be said. There are some things I'm not allowed to say. But planting the seeds for future conversations and future growth within the collective. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed our chat on portals, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to know more about me and my work, you can find me at www.sacredheartshaman.com.